Hi everyone and welcome back. We are back with Biomimicry Online Live. It's our 9th episode. So thrilled you're here. Thank you so much for joining wherever you are in the world. If you're watching on replay, you can still get involved by posting your comments, posting your questions, and getting involved even if you don't catch it live. But if you do catch it live, get involved by telling us, first of all, where you're watching this from in the world. And then throughout the live stream for the next half an hour, you can post your questions in the comments, ask any questions for Sue or myself. Sue's going to be joining us in a minute. But to start us off, let's have a little look at what we're going to be dealing with tonight. We've moved on to, very quickly actually, we've moved on to module 5 of Biomimicry Online. And this module is all about learning from life. So let's have a look at this. Check this out.
In this one, we focus on another element, key element of biomimicry, and that is the element of learning from life on Earth. That we may not only fit in again, but that we may also thrive by learning how to live wisely and appropriately. And just like learning to drive for the very first time, we may have figured out how the car actually works, that it's got gears for driving forwards and backwards, and that there's a clutch, brake, steering wheel. But to learn how to actually drive, that's where we need someone with driving experience to show us how. And to fully appreciate what it takes to thrive on Earth, we need to learn from the life experience of others who have been around a lot longer than us.
Amazing. Good evening, Sue. Thank you so much for joining once again. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, thanks, Rog. Lovely to see you again, and thanks very much for arranging, as always.
Always looking forward to having a little chat with you. And when I was going through this module today, just refreshing myself and everything, that once again, there are just so many nice little analogies and like mini sort of stories that you do. And just like that little introduction showed, I love that little car analogy. It puts it in context so quickly and so nicely.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the bottom line is we really, our current behavior shows just how much we are needing to be learning from our planetary elders. So.
Definitely. So why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to this particular module? So module 5, learning from life. Give us a little intro, and then what we can do, I've got a couple more short clips that we can play where we can just dive into a couple of topics.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I think that's one of the key elements of biomimicry is the shifting from learning about to learning from. So obviously there is a lot of learning about one needs to do in the beginning, but the real secret is then saying, okay, well, what can I learn from that? And a lot of it is based on context. And in particular, it's reminding ourselves constantly about our earthly context and how nature designs in relation to that, both from a planetary perspective, but also from then a local perspective, how the operating conditions are playing out in local circumstances.
So it's perfect that you actually sort of took a step back there and talking about the context, because that's exactly the first clip I think we're going to show everyone, just I guess to refresh everyone's memory, or if this is new to some of you, then just to giving you that bit of context. That's obviously so important, which I think as human beings we just take for granted, or we just take as too much automatic fact, and we just we don't really give it too much thought, I suppose, don't we?
Yeah, I think we just we don't give it the time of day, and it's really the most important thing that we need to be mindful of at all times. And yeah, so let the clip do the talking, and then we can follow up with it.
Perfect. So just a reminder to everyone watching now, or while you're watching the clip, just send in your questions and comments by posting in the reply in the comments section of where you're watching this. This is getting streamed to sort of several different places. So just send in your questions, comments, any thoughts, any questions for Sue, or any sort of ideas or any experience you've had, or just what you think of some of these clips that we're talking about. So here's the first one: learning from life, all about context. Check it out.
But when it comes to learning from life, we don't really just want to focus on the don'ts. We really want to know what we need to do. What does life do? How does life on Earth live? In fact, how does life on Earth thrive within our earthly context? We're really asking life for the blueprint for thriving on Earth. So let's take a look at a few pages within this guide. Living on a closed finite-sized system. What would an Earthwise, Biowise strategy be? Well, if what you have is what you've got, then it's best to be resourceful with what you have. And the question that we really need to put to life then is, well, what are the secrets to working resourcefully with what we have? In that dynamic system, where change is a given, where the idea is that one needs to maintain functioning in the presence of that change, then the response is you need to be resilient to do just that, to be able to maintain functioning in the face of change. And the question that we then need to put to life would be, well, what are the secrets to thriving in the face of change? And lastly, that interconnected and interdependent system, the Earth-savvy Biowise response to what amounts to us all living in community would be surely then to seek to maintain community. And the question we need to put to life would be, well, what are the secrets to maintaining community well-being?
So good, and so nicely sort of put everything. So is there any sort of particular points you want to sort of dive into with regards to the context, just to give it more context?
I think there's a tendency sometimes to make rocket science out of something that's really just quite elementary. And the fact is, we are a closed system planet. There are no imports and exports. So you've got to work wisely with what you have, and you cannot afford to deplete what we have. And so that learning to be resourceful is really what nature has done. It's using the least amount possible to get the job done well. So I think at all times, just to try and keep in mind, okay, so we are this closed system. So, in what way am I living resourcefully? Then with regards to a dynamic system, if you're living in a system that is constantly changing, how do you manage resilience within that? Resilience being the ability to maintain functioning in the face of change. And obviously being able to adapt, being attuned and responsive, those are the kind of things that one's got to start looking at. And asking myself, am I resisting change, or am I working with the change to actually improve and go on? And then, of course, the interconnected system is really, it's about moving even beyond the resourcefulness as well, because you can use the least amount possible, but if there are no imports, you will run out. But, it might be down the line. So, but what nature has learned to do is to be regenerative, to continually replenish, restore, replace, so that the system can just continue all the time. And with regards to maintaining community, I think, it's really also about relationship, collaboration and relationship. And those are the main thoughts.
So actually quite relevant that today is World Wildlife Day as well. And you talking about, the fact there's no waste and how nature operates and all of that. And it is interesting because I've sort of seen some posts today, obviously, talking about World Wildlife Day, and it sort of got me thinking before this live stream. And you've got the apex predators, and then you've got the scavengers, and then underneath that you've got the ants or whatever like that. And it literally just is nothing goes to waste. Nothing is put to waste anywhere in nature, other than what humans tend to create more and more of, I guess.
No, absolutely. And it doesn't make any sense because not only are there no imports in a closed system, there are no exports, so you can't just send it off. And even in sending off, if you were able to do that, you'd still be then ultimately depleting the system. So it's just totally illogical how we are actually functioning and thinking we can continue in this way. And of course it can get a little bit overwhelming, but I think that's where it's important to just start bringing it back to me and making a difference where I live and how I live my life, and then influencing family, community around you. And so you build it out from there, And of course, with World Wildlife Day, that also links to biodiversity, and that's one of nature's primary strategies for ensuring resilience is diversity. And there's obviously climate change is up there in terms of concerns and things, but it's the loss of biodiversity linked with that that to me is really the concerning thing, and we should be doing everything we can to protect habitat and to enhance diversity again, and help bring back species that are on the brink, helping them to really recover their numbers and their functioning, etc.
So for those of you just tuning in or just joining, or who are relatively new to these live streams or this topic, we're talking about learning from life, which is module 5 of Sue Swain's Biomimicry online course, which is a series of 6 modules. We've been working our way through those modules over the last several months, and we've got up to module 5 now. So now we've just started off with part 1 tonight, which is the context of learning from life. And I think what I've taken away as a whole from listening to you and helping you design these modules is the rediscovery sort of aspect a lot. It really, for me, it all boils back down to things that we were doing and now things we're not doing, and things that nature is automatically doing, and every other animal on the planet seems to be doing except us. And for that, I think just you using that word, rediscovering, I think that's probably come home to me a lot, I think, through all of these. And I think it's important to us in everything that's going on in the world right now, the crazy few years we've had, and the weirdness that's still happening around the world, is just sometimes taking that step back and rediscovering about why are we here, and how we need to sort of merge ourselves into the world as a whole, and become part of the world. And in doing that, we need to rediscover. And as module 5 is, we need to learn from what is out there.
And I think you touched on a critical point there, where you said, we're not doing what we used to be doing. And that is a point about biomimicry, is also it's a remembering of who we were, because our earliest ancestors did live in sync with the rest of life on Earth, and were intuitively living in a way that replenished, restored, was resourceful, resilient, etc. So in that rediscovering, it's also rediscovering who we are and who we are meant to be. And that's why, part of this course also really looked at the journey we've been on that has got us to this mess that we find ourselves in. And Yeah, it is just a bit concerning because history does seem to repeat itself. We don't seem to learn, but there are some fabulous, and there's a lot of grassroots movements making change now. I think we find ourselves now at the crux where people are realizing we simply cannot continue.
Yeah.
But then you still got major world powers doing what they're doing right now, which is just insane. But anyway, yeah.
So, Sue, let's dive in a little bit deeper into the second part of tonight. So, just going a little bit deeper, we looked at the context side of things, so we took a step back, and now let's sort of go in a little bit into the learning from life introduction side of things, and just what that all means. So, we'll share the next clip, and then we can have a little chat about it. Here we go.
Remembering that that's the secret to biomimicry, the shift from learning about to learning from, so that we can indeed learn how to thrive on Earth. It's a skill we need to learn, the ability to discern lessons from nature. And it involves a shift in focus and in intention, where our focus is just on that, on learning from that which we've discovered. And it also involves, looking for underlying principles or strategies behind the actions and functions.
Yeah, lovely. Do you want to sort of touch on those points a little bit more?
I think again, it's about really immersing yourself, understanding a particular context of an organism. Two of the organisms that I mentioned, following on to that, is the gecko and the mussels, and how both of them are needing to adhere. Mussel needs to stick tightly to the intertidal, to the rocks in the intertidal zone, and a gecko needs to be able to stick to walls and ceilings to run up various surfaces, etc. But they have vastly different contexts, and then the strategies that they use are different as a result of that. So the mussel is just needing to stick tightly. He doesn't move around. The water, the tide is what brings the food to him. And so his strategy is to use actually a chemical response. So he produces a chemically formulated adhesive, and which allows him to stick incredibly tightly to those rocks. But the lesson from that is, adapt to your local conditions, and then also tap into what's readily available around you. Make use of the fact that there is this change, but it's a constant change in the tides. So his strategy is, well, okay, so I'm going to stay in one spot and allow the tides and let the tides actually bring the food to me. And then the opposite is you've got a gecko that is highly active, needs to run around really quickly and all of that. So he can't afford to be slowed down by sticking tightly to a surface. And that's his option, was to then use a huge multitude of hairs underneath his foot, and they stick by means of Van der Waals forces to the surface, enabling, and it peels it very gently, and he can run very quickly. And again, it's fitting form to function. What is needed in that case? So it's always designing in context. So those are the kind of ideas in terms of the shift from learning about to saying, okay, so what are the deeper strategies, the underlying strategies, the principles and patterns that we can then learn from.
So to those of you that haven't tried out any of these modules as part of Biomimicry Online as yet, Sue's obviously been elaborating a little bit on some of the clips we've been showing, but the modules go into so much detail with examples and thoughts that you can then think about after you've sort of learned about some of the topics that Sue speaks about. There's little exercises you can do. There's so many sort of really interesting and fun aspects to Biomimicry Online. So the little clips we're showing are just little tidbits, and then little added discussions onto that, which is just bringing that discussion home really, and bringing it to you guys. So do go and check it out. Absolutely amazing. 6 modules out at the moment, Biomimicry Online. It's available at the Expedition Project website. If you are in South Africa and you're South African, then there's some great discounts for South Africans as well. But otherwise, it's very, very reasonably priced, and it's many, many years of research and insight, and a lot of thought has gone into it. Really, such lovely stuff. And to be honest, there's nothing like this out there at the moment. There's other biomimicry modules and courses out there which are fantastic, which are more sort of the innovation side. But Sue's Biomimicry Online is absolutely amazing, so thought-provoking and so interesting. So please go and check it out. Support us who've been putting a lot of work into this. It's really something that's highly worthwhile. And I would probably say, Sue, if anyone doesn't like it after they bought it, I'll happily give them the money back, because it's too good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Rod. Yeah, and I do hope we can get it out there. And as you say, the primary intention almost is to get people thinking differently and ultimately then acting differently, to be inspired to do so.
So any final thoughts on learning from life before we sort of move on to today's takeaway and wrap up tonight?
It just takes me back again to one of the earliest conversations we had about the need for humility, to understand that nature does know best. And that, we really need to humble ourselves and to ask, and then to take the lessons that we discover and start applying them. And that it's fantastic that we have this whole library of solutions and this university of evolved wisdom to draw from, and that life is this living guide to how we can thrive in this planetary home. So, which is just, it's, so extraordinary when you start really delving into just how things function. So, and it should make us feel really special that we're part and parcel of that. And when you start then understanding even just how many lessons there are to be discovered from how our human bodies function, that it's only our behavior that's gone haywire. So, yeah. Let's start behaving differently.
And we're only touching the surface, aren't there? I mean, it's a constant stream or constant library of solutions, as you say. You know what I mean? That are out there, and we learning. We do keep learning.
Absolutely. I mean, according to the stats, is we've only explored 6% of our oceans. So can you imagine what is out there? And it's ridiculous. We know more about outer space than we do about deep underwater stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, we need to think about that. Is it worth spending billions on outer space exploration when we, need to be understanding how this planet is thriving? And
yeah, that's definitely a hot topic as well, and probably a whole talk on itself about what we should be spending our money on and where we should be spending our money and all of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for today's takeaway, what's the sort of final message you want people to walk away with, or final action or activity that you want them to do?
Well, I think with today's being, focusing on the fact that it is this closed system planet and how can one live resourcefully, is to start asking ourselves, well, how am I using the least amount of energy and water? And to constantly question ourselves and to think, how could I use less? How could I reuse? How is nature doing it? But, go out in your own environment and see how nature is working with energy and water, and then try and emulate some of that. Don't wait for, municipal or council decisions to say we need to be saving water, or there's a drought. Wake up. If you haven't had rain, if things are looking dry out there, you're in a drought. Have you adjusted your water consumption in the process? And then the same with one of the points made is that in nature, every organism is basically meeting their own needs. And we've really allowed ourselves to become so disconnected from that, because we've got municipalities and, private companies and government departments that are generating the electricity for us, or we just turn on the tap, there comes the water, and we're so distanced from it. So, start thinking, well, what if I did start installing the rainwater tanks, and would I not actually become far more efficient in how I use things that way? And also just consider food, just how much are you meeting your own needs with your food? Can you not start growing at least some of your herbs and veggies and things like that? And then, of course, waste is a big one. Am I generating non-usable waste? How can I change that? So, just focus on learning to fit in with how things are happening in nature and how you can adapt your life accordingly in terms of resourcefulness.
Speaking of closed systems, unfortunately, we can't do these live streams forever and ever. So there are going to be a finite number of them. So do take advantage of them while we're doing it. We're obviously coming to the end of this cycle of live streams, which is where we're covering the modules and going through little aspects of the module step by step. And we're on module 5 of 6. And this is the 9th live stream. So there's technically only a few more of this cycle before we decide, if we're going to do something similar again. So do take advantage of them while you can, because you really got access to Sue's wisdom and all her knowledge and all these thoughts and everything while we're live, and you can sort of join the community, you can ask questions. And then fortunately, next month, Sue, the clocks are changing up north in the UK. So it means that it's not going to be a late night for you again, which is good. As the seasons the evenings get later here and they get darker in South Africa. So yeah, it won't be such a late night for you next time around. But thank you so much to everyone who's been joining tonight. Just remember, if you are watching us on replay, you can still send in your questions and your comments and get the conversation going. And let us know your personal experiences or your experiences with Biomimicry Online. If you haven't checked out Biomimicry Online yet, go to theexpeditionproject.com and go to the online courses section and check them out. There's 6 amazing modules there, very, very worthwhile, very affordable, and you won't regret it. So do check them out. That is about it from us. So Izzy says, thanks, Sue. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Thanks so much, Izzy, for tuning in.
Thanks, Isabel.
And yeah, so thank you so much, Sue. That's everything from me. I hope you have a lovely evening. We'll see you again next month.
Super. Thanks so much.
I'm going to play out with a little piece on a conference we did last year, which Sue was involved in, and because it's World Wildlife Day, I thought it was apt to play out with this because
lovely idea.
It does deal with a lot of different species and wildlife in South Africa. And Sue took a sort of a different angle in this conference. This conference has now been converted into an online course. And the online course is available to buy as a course. And we've turned the conference into this amazing course. So you can hear from a whole lot of different organizations like Endangered Wildlife Trust, from Cape Leopard Trust, from Amakala Foundation, from Terry Lee Honnibal, a fantastic large carnivore ecologist. We've got Dr. Peter Rogers, a wildlife veterinarian. Who am I forgetting? We've got Marine Dynamics and Dye Island Conservation Trust. I mean, there's a whole host of amazing speakers and topics in there, all from marine stuff to online animals to land animals and all sorts. And then obviously Sue's got a little slot in there too. So I'm going to play out with that. Go and check it out. Proceeds are still going back to all these organizations as part of some fundraising. And thank you so much again. We will see you all next month. Have a lovely evening all. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Perhaps the biggest success that I've had so far is actually to have survived so long.